In this video, I will discuss some of the evils inherent to lesbian motherhood. Many people are already aware of the extreme levels of evil inherent to male homosexual parenting, which typically involves two perverted males purchasing a human child from its birth mother so they can pretend to be a family, causing untold levels of attachment trauma and mother wounds in the psyche of an innocent baby just so they can play house with another man. There are few things as evil, narcissistic, and selfish as grown men robbing a baby of a mother just so they can continue to engage in their filthy fetish for male-on-male rectal sex. People may believe that lesbian parenting is less evil than male homosexual parenting because lesbians typically do not take the baby away from the birth mother when lesbians purchase babies from sperm banks, or when they make arrangements with degenerate men who are willing to donate semen to them. However, lesbian parenting is just as evil as male homosexual parenting, because both of these forms of parenting involve intentionally depriving a baby of at least one of their biological parents in order to accommodate adult sexual desires. By the way, surrogacy is prostitution. All paid surrogates are prostitutes, no exceptions. All surrogates are child abusers, no exceptions. And the buying and selling of babies is human trafficking. Growing a baby for 9 months just to hand it over to someone else is evil and a highly traumatizing form of child abuse. It is just as evil for homosexual men to buy children from surrogate prostitutes as it is for lesbians to buy children from sperm banks. Also, even in those instances when payment is not made in exchange for a human baby, homosexual parenting is still abusive and evil because it is still intentionally depriving a baby of one or both biological parents in order to force that baby to accommodate adult homosexual desires. And 100% of homosexual parenting is, by definition, child abuse, no exceptions. The act of intentionally robbing a child of a biological parent because of perverted adult homosexual desires is, by definition, in itself, child abuse. In the following, a woman raised by two lesbians explains the fact that homosexual parenting is, by definition, child abuse. The forced and deliberate separation of a child from a biological parent without a valid reason regarding welfare is a form of child abuse. When it comes to donor conception and the forced removal of a biological parent, that is a deliberate choice to deprive us of something that we innately crave. We're people, not property, and we deserve to be treated with respect. Homosexuals have no ethical right to deny us our history, our heritage, or our family. When it comes to marriage and how closely intertwined marriage is with child reproduction, we cannot say yes to homosexual marriage without invalidating a child's right to both genders. It is very dangerous to promote the idea that this is an acceptable thing to inflict on a child. Attempting to deny the relevance of gender and biology in a child's life would be laughable if it wasn't so damaging. In my own experience as the daughter of lesbians, being inherently fatherless, I regressed emotionally and behaviorally. To be a good parent is to make sacrifices for the well-being of your children. It's not about your ideal family. Being selfless means not getting everything that you want. Your level of convenience doesn't matter, because the primary goal in parenting should be to raise children as healthy individuals. As I have discussed in other videos, homosexuality is itself a form of narcissism. Specifically, homosexuality is itself a form of gender narcissism. Gender narcissism is the fundamental syndrome characterizing the homosexual condition. And just as narcissism develops in reaction to feelings of inferiority, gender narcissism develops in reaction to feelings of inferiority about one's gender. And gender narcissism involves an aversion to the opposite sex. Not only does gender narcissism involve an aversion to the opposite sex, but it also frequently involves a pathological hatred of the opposite sex, which can be either unconscious or conscious. Male homosexuals who purchase children from surrogate mothers are extreme misogynists who hate women and mothers. They believe that motherhood doesn't matter and that mothers have so little value that they see no problem with deleting a mother from a child's life. Few things are as misogynistic and hateful toward women and mothers as this outlook. Likewise, lesbians who purchase children from sperm banks are extreme misandrists who hate men and fathers. They believe that fatherhood doesn't matter and that fathers have so little value that they see no problem with deleting a father from a child's life. Few things are as hateful toward men and fathers as this outlook. One of the most extreme examples of abusive homosexual narcissism is displayed by those homosexuals who purchase human children from either prostitute surrogate mothers or sperm bank fathers. These homosexuals have absolutely zero regard for the well-being of the children they purchase. Like all narcissists, they see children as props to boost and stroke their own egos, and not as separate individual beings who need and deserve loving biological parents. To the homosexual parent, a baby is nothing more than a prop, an object that they use to feed their narcissism. Truly, truly despicable. 100% of homosexual parents are abusers of children, intentionally depriving a child of at least one of its biological parents in order to accommodate your sexual fetish for the same sex is an extreme form of narcissistic child abuse. 100% of babies deserve and require the love and care of both biological parents. Nature says that one man plus one woman equals life, which obviously means that one man and one woman are meant to nurture and raise that life. That is it. You can't improve on nature's design. No substitutions work. All homosexual parents are narcissistic child abusers. Yes, all.
I'm 22 years old now, and it still hangs over my head every day, the things that I've been through and how my identity in itself has been corrupted by this experience, because these people incorrectly raised me because they didn't see me as a person. It's like they saw me as this statement, this explanation to the world that lesbians are capable of having children and, that they're going to be fine. And the truth is they're not.
Defenders of homosexual parenting often compare it to adoption, but the two are nothing alike. Adoption seeks to salvage a traumatic situation, while homosexual parenting deliberately creates a traumatic situation to satisfy adult sexual desires. Adoption is usually selfless. Homosexual parenting is always selfish. Adoption is an attempt to heal harm, while homosexual parenting is an act that directly causes harm. Biology matters so much that even people adopted by amazing adoptive parents, who are far better parents than their own biological parents could ever have been, still crave their biological parents. In addition, people who are adopted often suffer from lifelong attachment disorders and abandonment issues, even if their adoptive parents are kind and loving. With homosexual parenting, the homosexual parents are the perpetrators, inflicting these psychological and emotional wounds on innocent children. With adoptive parenting, the adoptive parents are the ones trying to heal these psychological and emotional wounds that innocent children received from others. A woman raised by lesbians explains the psychological trauma of being deprived of her biological parents. I was angry that I was not part of a normal family and could not live with a normal mother. I wondered what I did to deserve this. Why did my biological mother let a lesbian adopt me? All homosexual families are, by definition, broken families, and all homosexual homes are, by definition, broken homes. However, unlike heterosexuals, who typically try to avoid creating broken families and broken homes, homosexual families intentionally create broken families and broken homes in order to accommodate adult sexual desires. Having an absent biological parent is considered an adverse childhood experience. Adverse childhood experiences frequently cause lifelong suffering, including, but not limited to, mental and physical illnesses. Homosexual families intentionally cause absent biological parents in order to accommodate adult sexual desires. Growing up in a homosexual family is, by definition, an adverse childhood experience. I have discussed in other videos the fact that homosexuals are far more abusive to each other than heterosexuals are, not just because 100% of same-sex sexual acts are, by definition, abusive, but also because aggressive behavioral patterns and violence are even more common in non-heterosexual couples and members of the LGBTQIA+ community than in the heterosexual community. Same-sex relationships are more likely to experience verbal, controlling, physical, and sexual intimate partner violence than heterosexual relationships. All forms of abuse are more likely to occur in homosexual and bisexual couples than in heterosexual ones. Given the fact that homosexuals are so incredibly abusive towards each other in every possible way, sexually, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, it should not be surprising that they abuse their own children in the same way. 100% of LGBT parents are abusive groomers of the children they raise. Even the act of simply exposing a child to the knowledge of the existence of deviant forms of sexuality is, by definition, grooming, let alone the actual, fully intentional types of grooming that the majority, if not all, LGBT parents subject their poor children to. And just like homosexual males, lesbians constantly groom the children they purchase in order to turn them LGBT. Here, a woman raised by lesbians describes the grooming she was subjected to by the two lesbians who raised her. They called my sister and me baby dykes and made us wear the small handcrafted lesbian signs they had made for us by a local lesbian jeweler. Both my sister, Maureen, and I have always been extremely resentful of that. It is so unfair to label a child's sexuality so young. A man raised by lesbians explains the disturbing sexual activity of his childhood. We kids would get together and have sex, males or females, in any combinations. Another man raised by lesbians admits he is a sexual degenerate who has no rules about his sexual behavior because his mom broke the big rule, the one that says only men and women get married. Another woman raised by lesbians says, "Trust me, it's hard on the children. The homosexual community will never admit it, but the damage stemming from their actions is profound. The sexual preference or orientation of the parent influences the preference of the child, and homosexual parents are associated disproportionately with homosexual children. 56% of the daughters of lesbians said that they believed their mother wanted them to become homosexual, while 0% of the children of heterosexual mothers in the comparison group made such a claim. Up to 47% of children raised by homosexuals become homosexuals themselves. As I have discussed in other videos, gender dissatisfaction is the root of both homosexuality and transgenderism, which are both gender identity disorders. And not surprisingly, children raised by homosexuals experience disproportionate levels of gender dissatisfaction compared to children raised by heterosexuals. 25% of men raised by homosexuals admit they wanted to be girls when they were children, and 42.9% of women raised by homosexuals admit they wanted to be boys when they were children. And twice as many women raised by homosexuals admit that they did not want to be girls growing up, compared to women raised by heterosexual parents. I personally know a very butch lesbian who had a child by purchasing semen from a sperm donor. This woman calls her son her mini-me. Can you imagine how confused this poor boy's gender identity will be? Homosexuality is a form of gender dysphoria. Children raised by lesbians frequently depart from traditional gender-based norms, while children raised by heterosexual parents usually conform to them. A study of over 15,000 Americans found that children raised in homes where the parents engaged in same-sex relationships were far more likely than children in intact heterosexual families to experience poor educational attainment, report overall lower levels of happiness, mental and physical health, have impulsive behavior, be in counseling or mental health therapy, suffer from depression by large margins, have recently thought of suicide, identify as homosexual, have male-on-male or female-on-female sex partners dramatically higher, currently be in a same-sex romantic relationship, be asexual, females with lesbian parents, as adults, be unmarried, much more likely to cohabit, as adults, more likely to be unfaithful in married or cohabiting relationships, have a sexually transmitted infection, STI, be sexually molested, both inappropriate touching and forced sexual act, feel relationally isolated from biological parents, be unemployed or part-time employed as young adults. As adults, currently be on public assistance, live in homes with lower income levels, drink with intention of getting drunk, smoke tobacco and marijuana, spend more time watching TV, have higher frequency of arrests, and have pled guilty to legal offenses.